Hey everyone, and welcome back to a new video. So it was Adepticon 2025 not that long ago, and we saw some pretty incredible Warhammer reveals. I think Grand Cathay probably stole the show in many people's eyes. It certainly did in my eyes, but there was plenty of news with Warhammer 40k, and the gist of it is that we're going back to Armageddon for a bit of a Royal Rumble between Angron and the followers of Khorne, the Grey Knights, possibly the Black Templars, and it seems the Space Wolves, because they're one of the big releases coming up in the coming weeks. We've known they're going to get a new codex and they were going to have a few new model refreshes, but it seems they're getting quite an extensive range refresh, and we'll go into why that's probably much needed in just a moment. But in this very short video, or hopefully short video, I just want to talk about some of the key models that we saw and some of my predictions for what might be coming down the line with this codex, because Games Workshop did drop a little tease that there might be more models on the way. But yes, just going back to Armageddon, there was a really cool video that showed that this is kind of the next big campaign narrative for 10th edition Warhammer 40k, and effectively Angron and the forces of Khorne are ravaging the planet. The Grey Knights, who are also getting their new codex, are struggling to keep it contained, and so they've made a call to aid, and the Space Wolves have answered the call, and they're probably going to be coming en masse, because you may or may not know, they are not necessarily codex compliant, and there are a lot more than just 1,000 of them, so be sure to see many Space Wolves, probably not just in the narrative but also in the tabletop in the not too distant future. But the main wave of the release is coming with this army set, and this is one of those really awkward moments where, being an Iron Hands player and also collecting Dark Angels, because I love Deathwing, and I really was nostalgic when they brought out that Deathwing set and the special edition codex for that particular set, I'm now looking at these Space Wolves and thinking, can I squeeze in another Astartes army? I may well do so, but there's something about that Space Wolf Grey that just looks so cool. And this actually is a pretty juicy set. You're getting a decent amount of models in this set, and I just love the look and feel. But let's just jump straight in. We're getting a refreshed range of Blood Claws. These are the sort of more trainee versions of the Space Wolf Astartes. And one of the things I really like about them is that, being neophytes, they have a sort of range of different armor types. So I guess there's only kind of two, but you can see the distinction between the kind of more classic Astartes and the neophyte armor with the kind of more basic shoulder pad. And in my mind, coupled with the fact you're going to have so many different head options and possibly poses and war gear selections, it's going to help to make those Space Marines really stand out and become kind of more unique characters. It's something I've seen Games Workshop do more and more with the Space Marine ranges. They're trying to create, more unique personalities, if I can stretch it that far, with some of their models. And I think this is going to be a really cool unit if you're looking to create very personable models, or models with a bit of unique character, at the very least. So yes, we've got a brand new set of Blood Claws and also a brand new set of Grey Hunters. These are the more established Space Wolves. They have bolt carbines, which is a mix-up from the sort of chainsword and bolt pistol that you'll see with the Blood Claws. And yeah, again, another really nice upgrade to the Primaris range. Both of these units were getting a little bit dated, because here's the current range of Blood Claws. Interestingly, there's 15 in this unit, and we're now going back to units of 10. So, interesting one for those of you who collect Space Wolves. How do you feel about going back to perhaps smaller squad sizes? But needless to say, I think this unit needed an update. You can see they are pushing, I think it's 3rd or 4th edition, if I'm not mistaken. So they've been around for quite a while. And the same with the Grey Hunters. These definitely look a little bit better. I think they're actually a really great model, and I think they've stood the test of time really well. But clearly, the time has come for a bit of a refresh. But one of the things I really am curious about is this wolf helmet you can see here. I thought there was one for the Horus Heresy series. There was a set of kind of wolfy helmets you could buy, but having looked on the store, I can't find them. So if anyone knows if they're still around, or is there a way to get these wolf helmets, I can see there are some third-party options, but I really did like the idea of if I ever went and collected Space Wolves, having kind of these sorts of helmets on some of my troops. But alas, it doesn't look like this has made the conversion to Primaris. Moving on, we've got the Wolfguard Headtakers. You may be familiar with the Wolfguard Terminators. We'll talk about them in a second because I suspect they will be getting a refresh with all the new Terminator upgrades we're seeing with this edition. But these Headtakers are kind of more... They're effectively the Blade Guard unit of this particular chapter. It's interesting. In a lot of the Warhammer games right now, there's kind of like... I think of it as like a 1-3-5 rule. Your core troops are kind of made up in multiples of 5. You have these elite units. The Stormcast have their new Ruination unit, which kind of fills this gap as well in Age of Sigmar. It's kind of the elite units are blocks of 3, and you typically see them with shields and things like that. So this seems to be kind of that slot in the Space Wolf range, but they all come with wolf companions. And what's interesting is that in this set, you can see just here in the kind of bottom right, you get 3 of them with 3 wolves. If you can reinforce them, then theoretically that could be a nice unit of 12 for one of your more elite options. So I think that'd be an interesting one to see when the rules come out. But in my mind, these are kind of like the quintessential look and feel of the Space Wolves. They look like Space Vikings from your coolest nightmares, basically. I just think when you think Space Wolves, you would think this, and I think it's just a really nice new unit for Space Wolf players to pick up, add to their existing armies, and also just really to lure in players like me, because this unit, I think, is what really converted me to the idea of just starting up a 3rd Space Marine army. They just look awesome. And the felt pelts and just the kind of confident striding, the poses, the implied narrative, as I talk about in some of these videos, a lot of it just is really, really cool. And yeah, plenty of Space Viking stuff to play around with, no doubt, when it comes to the options. This one in particular, without the shield, with this really nice kind of Norse helmet. Again, talking to that kind of really doubling down on the lore and the aesthetic of the Space Wolves here. I really like it. We'll see what we can do with the different war gear options, but yeah, this is absolutely the standout unit from this entire set for me. The Wolfguard Battle Leader, we're touching on the 2 hero units now that come in with this box set. Basically kind of builds on the Headtaker's look and feel, but serves as a lieutenant for the Space Wolves range. You can see here a couple of weapon options, has the shield potentially, can be equipped with a pistol option, Thunderhammer option. Yeah, kind of what you'd expect from a Lieutenant sprue, but again, very, very Space Wolfy, to say the least. And then there's the Wolf Priest, which is another unit that kind of really drew me into the idea of starting a Space Wolf army. I think the kind of, let's call it the default pose, as it were, looks really good. That runic priest mask looks incredibly menacing, really nice complement to the wider chaplain range. But it's this one in the top right that absolutely sold it. I mean, can you get a more Norse Viking look for your Space Wolves than this? I think it's just it's such a cool head, and it's one of the few head options I've seen in the Space Marine range that would make me pick that over a helmet. I'm very much like your Space Marines, you're in dangerous war zones, wear helmets. This, I think, is the exception, and I think it's an absolutely brilliant accessory to the model. So no doubt I'll see many players doing the same as me, potentially. We've then got the limited edition codex. I was curious if maybe they were going to go back to some 3rd edition artwork like they did with the Dark Angels one. The Dark Angels one has the chaplain and the Space Wolves in the the Space Wolves, the Dark Angels chaplain and the kind of typical classic Space Marines in the chapel. They've gone for a newer piece of art here, which is still fantastic, but I was wondering if some of these limited edition codexes were kind of nods to the past as well. But yeah, really nice limited edition. This will come in the set. Then when the full codex, or I say the full codex, the standard codex, launches, that will also probably come with another limited edition codex. So you'll have kind of 3 varieties of this codex to pick from, but this won't be exclusive to this army set while the stocks last. And then we talk a little bit about the what's next. Interested what Imperial Fists get. We seem to be going down the route of really separating out the different chapters, which I think is really, really cool. But we'll have to wait and see what the rules and models for that look like. But you may see here that Games Workshop talks about more troops will be marching into the frosty halls of Fenris. And I have 4 predictions for the models we will probably see with that refresh. I might be overextending myself. It might only be 1 or 2 upgrades. But my money is on, firstly, Wolfguard Terminators. I think they're a safe bet. Look at them. They probably need an update. They're not going to look particularly great next to sort of more Codex compliant Terminators right now. And if you've upgraded or created a unit for the Wolfguard Head Takers, I think it makes sense to have Wolfguard Terminators, get a fresh unit as well. So I think they're a safe option. The Wolfen, I think a lot of Space Wolf players would be slightly disappointed if the Wolfen don't get an upgrade, but at the same time, they don't necessarily need one as much as other models in the Space Wolf range. I think they could probably last another year or 2 without feeling like they really, really need it. But I think it'd be really cool to see some new Wolfen as part of this new wider Space Wolf refresh. The Dreadnought, though, I do think will probably see an upgrade. Bjorn probably falls into this bucket as well. I think Games Workshop wants to move away from the classic Dreadnought chassis because they've obviously discontinued the main Dreadnought model largely, and probably want to shift everything to the Redemptor chassis, which I think would be really cool. And I think you could bring in some of these weapons and shield options as an upgrade sprue for a Redemptor Dreadnought or something like that. So it might be that it's not a new model as such, but an upgrade sprue to improve on the current Redemptor Dreadnought types. We'll wait and see. But of course, my money's on Logan Grimnar. I think he's going to get an upgrade, partly because he could do with a sort of newer Terminator upgrade in some ways, because you want him to fit in with your other Terminators. But at the same time, he's one of these models, that while he looks absolutely incredible as he is, I think he could be improved in such a better way right now. I think the fact he's online only as well, to me, screams that he's probably going to get an upgrade that can be stocked in stores. So that's probably a sign that they're not making very many of these, but might want to bring Logan Grimnar back into the story with a brand new model. But I do think that it's one of those models where people will want to have him, and that probably justifies Games Workshop taking the time to upgrade him and come up with a really cool, new, fresh take on this existing design, which I think is just so unique and really makes the Space Wolf stand out on the tabletop, amongst so many other things. So yeah, those are the new models coming with the Space Wolf Codex. We'll probably hear more about it in the coming weeks. I suspect it will probably come out sometime towards the end of April, and just in time for the new Armageddon narrative campaign. So with all that said, I'm keen to hear your thoughts. What did you make of this particular release or this announcement? What are you expecting from Space Wolves and the wider Armageddon campaign that's to come? And will you be jumping in, possibly like me, and buying this set when it launches? Let me know in the comments section. But as always, a big thank you for watching today. And until we meet again, take care.